Conflict-sensitive reporting for young audiences. That's the topic of lesson 6 of unit 1. It's really important, it's really serious, so listen up. In my early career, I was a television journalist and I traveled to Syria where I was smuggled in with a group of surgeons that were building a hospital in the province of Darkush in Idlib. And I was a really young journalist, and I'm not sure at that stage whether I had the editorial maturity to make the decisions that had to be made when on the ground. So now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit more experienced, I want to share some advice with you on how to cover these really sensitive topics well for young audiences. First up, when you're conflict reporting, whether you're on the ground or whether you're reporting from a distance, you need to have the highest ethical and professional standards, because you're often explaining a conflict to a young audience that have no prior context of what's going on. This means you need to be incredibly well researched so that you can write very clear and simple terminology to help explain the context on the ground. People often think that if they're doing a simple piece, they can do a little bit of research, but it's quite the opposite. You need to do a lot of research to be able to sum something up in a very simple way. Sometimes it might also be useful to use certain metaphors to make the conflict or story relatable to the audience that you're speaking to, but it's very important that you understand that the video or story that you produce can inflame a story, it can make the conflict worse, and therefore it's important for you to be very sensitive about how you tell that story. As a reporter, you must be aware of the influence that your video storytelling or any story that you produce can have in either inflaming the situation or helping to moderate it. So one of the biggest challenges that I found when reporting in Syria is that we were on one side of the conflict and we were surrounded by people that were in allegiance with the Free Syrian Army. And that really didn't give us a balanced view of the conflict. Often it's really difficult to bridge that divide because you can't cross the front line, and it's difficult to hear from the other side and crisscross in between a conflict. So how do you tell stories that resonate with both sides? As a professional journalist, one way to bridge that barrier between opposing sides is to find solutions-based storytelling that both sides would be interested in. For example, you could focus your stories in on national heroes that could be celebrated by anyone in that country. What is important is to remove the stereotypes and assumptions that can be found in our storytelling. If the race, the caste, the religion doesn't influence the story or have anything to do with the story, do we need to mention it? Probably not. 3, don't just report the bare facts. Sometimes we end up saying 2-3 million people have become refugees, and people just become numbers, and we start to lose empathy and understanding with real human stories. We often also have a bias for focusing on the communications officers or the president or the president's spokespeople. What's really important is to hear from people on the ground that are being impacted by the conflicts. 4, language matters, and use strong language very carefully and selectively. When I was working at CNN once, there was an attack that took place in London, and the headline read that the attacker is believed to have said something in Arabic. And I quickly got in touch with the editors and I was like, hey guys, this is a massive issue. Millions and millions of people speak Arabic around the world, and we're automatically implying, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, that he said something in Arabic. We're kind of saying that maybe he was Muslim. There's many people that speak Arabic that are not Muslim. He could have been saying, Assalamu alaikum, hello, peace be upon you. We don't know at that stage what he was saying, but the idea of he was believed to have said something in Arabic, I didn't feel that that was an important detail that took the story forward. So let's look at some definitions of words that you may use when reporting on conflicts and various other crises. For example, the word assassination is commonly used, but did you know that the definition specifically refers to the murder of a head of state and no one else? So I can't be assassinated. Another controversial word is often the word terrorist or terrorism. It's really important to wait till the police or a government authority announce what they are calling the attack before you label it terrorism or call somebody a terrorist. A massacre, which is another common term that you've probably heard, refers to the deliberate killing of innocent, unarmed civilians. So policemen or soldiers can't be massacred. And the word genocide, which you've probably heard in regard to Rwanda and other conflicts, refers to the killing of an entire people. So if there was a big attack at the hotel that I'm in right now, that would not be a genocide. We're not trying to minimize the suffering that takes place around the world, and we want to make sure we report on it accurately and fairly, but use strong language carefully. So thanks so much for watching this lesson on conflict-sensitive reporting for young audiences. I think this is a really important topic because there's so many different conflicts taking place around the world. Young people want to understand them better, but we've got to be able to report on them in a very ethical and sensitive way.